If my mom and sister fled, a lot of times I would stick with him.
And why would they flee?
Because he had a volatile temper. And if the games were not going his way, it wasn't pleasant.
Your dad was pretty hard on you. He thought you should study criminal justice, and he also never thought you were ambitious enough. Why is that?
He thought that wanting to be a broadcaster was, sort of a quixotic notion, and that maybe if I studied criminal justice, that would be something that was a more practical career path. So he encouraged me to take that up at Syracuse University. But a large part of the reason Syracuse appealed to me was that I knew that Marty Glickman and Marv Albert had gone there. He didn't live long enough to see me even matriculate at Syracuse. When he died, it's like May of my senior year in high school. So he never saw or heard anything I did, and I've often wondered, what would it be like? I could take him to Yankee Stadium. I could take him to Lambeau Field or Wrigley Field, or if he'd lived that long, take him to the Olympics. And you don't have to have a bet. You don't need to be trying to strike it rich. We're good. I got you. Or would it be, that he'd be pumping me for information? Or would he, and this is like almost comical to think about, would he curse at me through the television? Would it be, hey, my own kid is bringing me bad news?
And how would he kind of indirectly involve you in his gambling?
Well, my father was an inveterate gambler, big-time gambler. The mortgage literally riding on the outcome of his bets. And he didn't gamble at the racetrack or at casinos. He bet on ball games. I liked watching the games with him. I liked following it. I liked actually the exhilaration of it. We're winning or we're losing. And so if my mom and sister fled, a lot of times I would stick with him.
And why would they flee?
Because he had a volatile temper. And if the games were not going his way, and if the Christmas money or whatever it was going down the drain, it wasn't pleasant.
And volatile temper means what?
Volatile temper means throwing things, cursing, yelling, just not good, not good. But I'll say this: my dad was an interesting guy. My dad was like out of a movie, or at least so I thought. He was funny, he was charismatic, he was very smart. At his best, if he was flush with cash, he was very, very generous. So, I wanted to be close to him, and that was a way in which we could be close.
So you're 18, a high school senior, and the police come and knock on the door. What do they say?
It was a Friday afternoon, May 15th, 1970, and I opened the door. My mother was right behind me, and the cop looked past me and said, "Mrs. Costas?" And she said, "Yes." And he said, "Please sit down." And she said, "My husband's dead, isn't he?" And he said, "Yes, ma'am, he is." And he had had a heart attack walking through JFK Airport. From what we can surmise, he was dead before he hit the floor. Sunday at the wake, a gambling buddy of his walks in. The guy's name was Steve Collins, and he handed me an envelope, a thick envelope, and he said, "Your father was up when he died. Give this to your mother." Now, a bookie will never pay a dead man. So when Steve learned that my dad had died, he went to the bookie and said, "John sent me to collect." He got the money. There was $6,000 in $100 bills. That was my father's entire estate.
How did you handle his death, as well as your mom and sister?
Well, he was a difficult man. To this day, if you don't resolve, in some sense, a primary relationship in your life, you think about it. He put my mom through the ringer. She obviously loved him. So it wasn't any one emotion, but certainly among those emotions is, I'll never know. I'll never know how he would have reacted to me as an adult and to the life I could have made him part of. I'll never know.
So it's 1966, and your mom's driving and gets in a car accident that nearly takes her life. What happened?
Rainy day or night, she's the only passenger. Car skids off the road, smack head on into a tree. The doctor later told my dad that he had never seen someone, we're not talking about illness, but with traumatic injuries to that extent, who survived. I mean, every bone in her body was practically broken. Cranial injuries, everything. But somehow she survived it. The pain and discomfort that she not only put up with and lived through, but laughed through very often, had a happy, fulfilled life, despite what she had been through, was an amazing thing.
What do you think you learned from her?
She had a great sense of humor. She was self-deprecating. She took a great deal of pleasure from the fact that she could turn on the TV and see her son. And I wasn't fully aware of this. And one time I was in some kind of storage room in her house, and she had stacks and stacks of VHS tapes. Bobby on Hollywood Squares, Bobby on Johnny Carson, Bobby on World Series. But she had like 300 of them that she'd cataloged herself.
And she got you a tape recorder at 16.
Oh, yeah. A Christmas present when I was 15 or 16, and sometimes I would sit in front of the television set and turn the sound down and try and broadcast the Yankee game or the Met game. And my initial thought then was, this is much harder to do than I ever imagined.